mean, that's not fair, getting me emotional before I start. I appreciate that, that nice intro, and excited to be back again. And for me, like part of the conversation that you've heard, Jessica does an amazing job of curating a conversation and really an experience here at these events, but also running it through a theme. And I love the idea and the theme of co-creation. Although I guess with I should have wore a black hat. I pretty much matched my outfit to that bobblehead pretty well. But for me, like part of the dialogue and the conversation that I've actually been able to kind of bring to light is really this idea of transformation and taking you on a journey that really isn't about the technology. And I know that sounds funny because you've heard things about the metaverse and virtual reality and those type of kind of components. But if we think about it and we think about the true value of where we're moving, what we have to actually start thinking about is really moving towards an area and a place that we can actually put technology in the background. The idea that the things that where technology is there, because there's one big issue with technology, is that technology will never and does not solve people problems. People solve people problems. And for far too long, we like to throw technology at people problems. And what happens with the people problem, it doesn't get solved and we blame the technology. And then we throw more technology at that people problem. And then when it doesn't solve that, we say that technology sucks. I told you I should never have used it. Why are they telling me I'll be on Instagram? I should not be doing live video. My brand doesn't need a podcast, whatever that may be. Now, the beauty of this is that not only is the technology changing, thank goodness we're not using pagers anymore. And I like to consider I'm a pager-wearing millennial. I actually have a pager there sitting in my book bag. It really just means that I was born in 1981, which for a while I kind of liked that. But I turned 41 last week, and so now it's like, okay, I probably should take that pager-wearing millennial conversation a little bit somewhere else. But you see a hashtag on there, and we're going to talk a little bit about NFTs. We're going to talk a little bit about the space they're in. We also have that hashtag, and the hashtag simply stands for Do Your Own Damn Research. And that's like where I keep myself financially covered here. So this is not financial advice. You are going to do your own damn research because I know without question someone will come up and say, Brian, I took your advice. I went and did this. I got this NFT. It's now worth nothing. Where do I get my refund or where do I get something next? And so really the conversation that we're going to have is not actually about a lot of the NFTs or the technology that you might be hearing around like kind of media and where things are going. We're really going to focus on this transformation. And I thought Jessica did a great job of talking about Web 1 to Web 2, Web 2 to Web 3. But for most of us, we don't care what web it is. We actually don't even care what is the underlying technology. We want to know, how does it work? What problems does it solve? And ultimately, does it grow my business, help my business? Because I think for a lot of this technology, especially things like virtual reality, I think virtual reality has so many amazing use cases, but we have to make sure the timing is right. What is the education of our audience? What is the education of our community? And so part of the thing that I want to share is, for those that might be a little bit confused, I am the same guy that last year talked about not NFTs, not cryptocurrency, not that side. I talked about digital transformation, and I'm also the same guy that was here 2 years ago and talked about the power of telling your story and being vulnerable online. And I happen to also be the guy that was here 4 years ago talking about the idea of live streaming video and putting your live video out here. And I was actually the guy here at the very first year of this event at UNOH as we got to talk. And I got to talk about just really the idea of personal branding. And so the beauty of all of that, I'm also the same guy that, yes, even in Ohio, I have to make sure it's clear, I am a proud Yinzer, born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was raised with just like the simple concept that, Philadelphia is really in New Jersey, because we don't like to claim them, right state, wrong side, and that nothing ever good came from Ohio. But then we drafted Big Ben, and he was a Miami, Ohio guy, and I started to realize, okay, and now one of my dearest and closest friends, Jessica, and I get to come here every year. And I will tell you, for me, driving in, I drove up yesterday, it does feel like coming home, back to this, this town, back to a lot of the people here that I've been able to kind of go through this journey on. And so it's been fun, and I've been talking about a lot of different things on these stages, and you might be like, Brian's just going to keep jumping in. And now we're talking about these funny pictures. And if you see those pictures there, I mean, they're non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. And for many in this room, they're like, I'm not really sure I want to get into this. So this seems a little overwhelming. And that's actually my wallet. Those are my NFTs. I own every one of them that are on there. And I asked my designer, I'm like, I need all of my NFTs on one slide. And he's like, yeah, this is getting ridiculous. So that's actually only one of the wallets that I own. And interestingly enough for me, it's been the greatest experience that I've had in anything I've ever worked on. And the beauty of it is, I've talked about a lot of these different things over the years, but what has happened is I believe NFTs are the intersection in community and people interaction that I didn't know we were missing, but that now I live and breathe. But the truth is, like many people, you're like, what are NFTs? Or if you're like, are people paying thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars for monkey photos? And in May of last year, so a little over a year ago, I was just like you. I actually was in a Clubhouse room, and I walked into this Clubhouse room, didn't really walk, I opened the app, and I opened it, and there was a bunch of people laughing with monkey photos, bragging about they spent $400 for these monkey photos called NFTs, and they had this name called Bored Ape Yacht Club. And I was like, what a dumb name. What are these idiots doing spending $400 with these things? And so I, of course, do what I normally would do, is I took a screenshot, took it to Twitter, and said, look at these idiots laughing and bragging about spending $400 on a monkey photo. That tweet has been retweeted hundreds and hundreds of times, but not for good reason. Each time one of those guys with monkey photos sells their monkey photo for 6 figures or higher, they like to quote retweet that tweet that I put out there. Those silly monkey photo kids are all millionaires at this point because they got into this Bored Ape Yacht Club. And so if you're confused by that concept, if you think it seems silly and neurotic and a little bit like people are playing with funny money, I was right there with you. And I wish I had it in me to delete that tweet. But for me, it's also one of those reminders that, like, when we look at a lot of technology, we look at change, a lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, the idea that I had a pager, and I remember, like, think about it when we had pagers. If someone had told you that you're going to put a phone in your pocket and take it with you everywhere, including the toilet, we probably would have thought they were crazy. Like, I had to explain to my daughters, they're 12, 11, and 8, I was trying to explain to them that there was a phone attached to a wall inside of a house. And I was like, and I would always say, I picked up the phone, and I'd have to stand here and talk to Grandma, and Grandma would talk to me for so long, and I would just have to say, like, thank goodness we have to pay money for this, Grandma. This long-distance phone call from Virginia to Pittsburgh, we can't talk long. And my daughter was like, well, Daddy, why do you hold the phone like this? Why did you pick it up like? I'm like, so there's a wall. And they're like, but why didn't you walk away from the wall? I'm like, there's a cable attached to this part of the phone. And they're like, why is there a cable? And I was like, okay. So if we think about change and transformation, it is a journey. And I want you to come with me on this journey to understand really where NFTs fit in. Now, the name is kind of funny. Actually, I've laughed every time calling it a non-fungible token, because when I hear something like non-fungible token, my first question is, A, what the hell is fungible? And B, if this is a non-one, what are the ones that are like pro-fungible tokens? And that, to me, just automatically starts things off very difficult. And I pride myself on my ability to translate the geek speak, right? My background, I worked in cybersecurity, for the US government for a decade. And what I got to do is I got to work with amazing developers that said, give me my Mountain Dew and leave me alone. And I got to go brief the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon, and they were like, I don't care what those kids with Mountain Dew are doing, just let me know when they're actually going to execute on what they have working. And so that's going to be my job today, is to hopefully translate this geek speak around non-fungible tokens. And really, what a non-fungible token means is it's something that cannot be replicated, cannot be duplicated. The difference between a non-fungible token and a fungible token is, let's say I gave you $10, US $10, and I said, on next week, I would like you to give me that $10 back. Well, the $10 is actually a fungible token because you can go spend that $10, And then when you remember next week that you're supposed to pay me back, you can go to the bank and get another $10 or a 5 and 5 ones and come back and give it to me. And in whatever that mix of you giving it back to me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be that exact $10 because it is a fungible item. If I sent you an NFT that was minted on the blockchain, which is what's referred to as the very first time that it's put out into the world. It's called minting it to the blockchain. But if I transferred you my NFT and said you need to give this back to me next week, you have to give me that exact one. And it is traceable and trackable on this technology that we call the blockchain. So the reason that's important is that in this whole game, like cryptocurrency, which right now, literally I cry inside even using the word cryptocurrency because we are currently going through what might be the biggest crypto crash ever in the last 48 to 72 hours. I had to remove my Coinbase app off of my phone just for my own mental health, refreshing the bloody version of I think down 10% again today. But the beauty of this for me is that I actually disconnect this from actual crypto. And so this is a virtual studio, and I own this art. So all of that art that you see there on the wall are actually NFTs that I've purchased over the years. And I mentioned last May, I thought these monkey photos were really confusing, didn't really make a lot of sense. But that photo you see up there with the green background and the bald dad is a NFT called Crypto Dads. And it was a project that I was able to find. It was one of the first NFTs that I found in August of last year that I kind of immersed myself in their community. And the beauty of this project is that I'm a proud girl dad. It's the greatest job I've ever had in my life. But connecting with other dads, I've been part of fatherly.com and a lot of conversations. But really, it was like we're more than a dad, but I also want to connect with others that kind of share my interests. Well, interestingly enough, that community kind of opened up some doors and allowed some conversations to happen that really have been, beneficial in my life, but also we've been able to share stories. I co-parent. I have co-parent with the mother of my kids, and sharing just journeys on that side. And I think the beauty of what I've found is that online for the last 10, 15 years, we've been told relationships are important. I mean, Jessica lives it, preaches it. It's the reason she gets the best speakers in the industry on this stage, is because she understands it. But how do we facilitate serendipity online? Now, I love that word, and apparently in my podcast, people thought I made up that word because I have a tendency to make up words. But that one I didn't make up, right? The idea of why do we come to events when we can get this learning and information at anywhere we want? I would love to say you come to events for what I do here for a living on stage, but let's be real. It's for the networking, it's for the connecting, it's for the fact you'll go over to the coffee stand, run into someone that happens to run a business in your area that you can co-create with or that you can collaborate with. Interestingly enough, as much as I've loved social media and digital, how did you find people that you didn't know, that didn't know you, but you shared a common interest or a passion? I mean, anyone, like Instagram algorithm, I think you see 19% of your followers. Facebook, I don't think most people see anyone's content. And so weirdly, as much as social media wants to be that social enabler, it never really enabled serendipity. The idea that you can connect with people that don't know you, don't like you, never heard of you, but you share a common interest. NFTs are that actual answer to solving that problem. And they're part of this greater Web3 movement. And really, when you think of Web3, the components that kind of fit in there is we have NFTs, we have creator coins, we have the metaverse, which you've heard a little bit about as well, and of course, cryptocurrency. And I am not a financial guy, and so the cryptocurrency side of it has always kind of scared me away from what's going on. And there's actually another one of those tweets that I kind of wish I would have deleted at one point, because I was giving a talk in 2014 at Amazon Web Service event, 14,000 people in the audience, and I said, I have one wish and one prediction that the thing that will not happen is we cannot have cryptocurrency become the first mass adoption use case for the blockchain. And I am a futurist, but not a perfectionist, because I got that way wrong. Cryptocurrency ultimately became and is the first mass adopted use case, but it's still in the early adoption phase. And right now, I live in Washington, D.C. at the moment, and right now, actually today, they're going through and hopefully going to pass the first regulation around cryptocurrency and stable coins and some of those things that are going on. So I understand it enough to know that piece. But for me, the part of this that really is exciting is this idea, and it's really the premise of what I've talked on this stage every year, is that I believe the future of business is community. How you hire, how you grow your customers is through community. It's nothing new. Word of mouth marketing has existed since the beginning of time, where the idea is that if you love something and you love what you bought or you love the service that you've received, you tell your friends. And as much as we love to believe in our power of marketing, there is no billboard that I'm going to drive by that is going to give me that same confirmation or connection to someone else that I know and trust to recommend something. But if we think about that word community, and really what does community mean, we really have to think about it as how do we together lift each other up? Right? That saying, the rising tide lifts all ships. The problem with that in the digital space is that a lot of the rising tide left most of those ships behind. The idea that you were a YouTube creator, and as YouTube creators got successful, even if I was watching that YouTube creator when they had 50 people watching them, and I liked all their videos, and I commented on everything that they were doing, as they became more successful, I just became more drowned out as an audience member, as a consumer, as someone that was watching this content. And so when we think about this and we think about what this all can mean, really what comes into this conversation is this word decentralization. Now, decentralized is the premise of where this is all moving. So if you think of Web 2, we gave all of our data and information to the platforms, right? We've all done it. And I kind of liked the idea that when I would forget to check out my shoes on the Amazon cart, and then I was scrolling Facebook and they're like, hey, did you know you still have this in your cart? I'm like, I didn't. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go make sure I check that out. The interesting part of that is, over the years, we just became used to the fact that if we're getting something for free, we're paying with it with our data. You don't pay for Instagram. We use it for free. What are we giving them? It's our data, our buying habits. We know that now because, let's face it, we as consumers and customers have never had this much information, this much connection, and really this much choice. And so the question really, from a technology perspective, came down, how do we take back control of our data and our information? Let's face it, if every person in the world decided to not use Instagram, Instagram would die. But last time I checked, especially here in the United States, we can't even agree to do anything as a whole. I live in Washington, D.C. Let's face it, I know how divided the country is. And so the question then becomes, what does this mean to be decentralized? And the beautiful thing of where this is going is that we are taking back the power by shifting the dynamic to giving us as the consumer the power. Now, as brands and businesses, this shift can be a little bit scary, and we're going to talk a little bit about where that goes, because that word transparency is what ultimately is enabled thanks to this new technology. So everything that you do on the blockchain, every NFT, every cryptocurrency purchase, every time I share or buy something, there is a ledger that is online that is tracking everything. And if you think of a ledger, it's just literally an Excel spreadsheet style. And so every NFT, every action I make, it is stamped in there. So think of it as they're stamping it into the concrete. It cannot be changed. And this is actually the magic that is enabled here. And so the beautiful thing about this is that I want to talk about use cases for everyone here in the room, from small businesses to marketers. So no matter what your business is, and I've said this in the past with other technologies, I firmly believe that I can provide a use case for NFTs for every person's business in here. And I know you're like, he says that, but he doesn't know where I work. He doesn't know my people. My people are baby boomers, and they don't want to know anything about NFTs. I got you. So I'm going to be here all day tomorrow. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here. Come find me on breaks and bring me your use case. Now, I will tell you, I did this with live video once in one of the rooms. I said, I believe live video can work for every brand and business. Prove me wrong. And a guy in the back said, you can't work for my business. I was like, try me. And he's like, I own a mortuary. I was like, shit. So I will also be open and say if I don't know, or maybe you can prove me wrong. But I will also tell you, 6 months later, I had him doing 4 Facebook Lives a month, and he eventually had to stop doing Facebook Lives because his business was as big as he needed to get. He didn't want any more clients. It came around. We talked about the idea that a mortuary, no one wants to think about it when they actually have to go to that scenario, but it is a trust game. Last time I checked, I'm literally wearing the shirt that matches it, right? And every person in here, we are in the business of trust. How do we deliver trust? How do we build trust? How do we scale trust? And so for me, with NFTs, you can't really see the white writing on there, and don't really worry about that side as much, because I'm doing a daily podcast, and anyone that thinks the daily podcast is crazy, you are 100% correct. Today is day 216. I've done a podcast every single day since November 11th, and I've also bought an NFT every day since November 11th, because for whatever reason, on November 5th, my team and I came out with this crazy idea and said, let's do a daily podcast, let's buy an NFT and help people on this journey. At the time, I had 1.5 employees, and it sounded like a good idea, but I'll tell you, I'm diagnosed ADHD, and for me, I was like, 40 years of my life, I'm not consistent. Consistency is not what I was built for. I literally, and I know for some of you that don't know me, you're like, yep, ADHD, that makes sense. He won't stand still. He's talking really fast. He's moving his hands around, and that's very true to who I am. But at 40 years old, I actually taught myself something for the first time, is that just because I've never been consistent before doesn't mean I can't moving forward. I now have a team of 10 people that are running our project. We are working with these small brands you might have heard of, like Disney and the Olympics, to drive and leverage NFTs in their use cases. So that daily podcast is available in every podcasting app. If you don't like podcasts, you can actually do it on YouTube as well. We have the podcast up there, so you can just search NFT 365. But one of the most popular episodes that I did was 49 use cases for NFTs that nobody's talking about. And within that use case, one of them I talked about this thing called sneakers. And I am a very proud sneakerhead, and for some people, I'm kind of doing something that probably shouldn't be done, because these are the new LeBron Kings, and I replaced the white laces with pink laces. I'm probably maybe the only one that's wearing LeBrons with pink laces. As a proud girl dad, and bright pink being my favorite color, I like to add my own little twist and fun to what we have going on. But if we think about the idea of shoes or your front display at your business or where you're going, one of the things that we always struggle with is how do we know what our customers want or need? Well, in this game of NFTs, we actually are able to use things like buying an NFT to reserve a shoe. I did this actually just recently, is that we were walking through the mall, I was with my daughters, and they had upcoming shoe, scan this QR code to let us know that you actually want to buy it. Of course, when I scanned it, it just asked me to put in my email. We all know what happens. They drop you into the email funnel. You get inundated with emails about the product. But if this was an NFT, and I could scan that and buy my shoe ahead of time, as a customer, as a business, they now are actually getting me to purchase in the moment that I actually want the item. The other part of this that is beautiful as a consumer is that if I say I want those shoes, which is probably what would happen, and I scan that and I buy that NFT, and I realize over the next couple weeks before I execute on actually getting those shoes shipped to my house, that I probably don't want them. It's kind of an impulse buy. The beautiful thing about NFTs is that I can then sell that NFT to someone else, and then they can turn it in for that pair of shoes that they might want. So when we're looking through this idea of NFTs, and a couple of examples I'm going to give you here, is it really is a mindset shift to how we interact, and what this term, and I will tell you the term that you want to think about, is digital ownership. Right now, the idea of owning something online has not existed. Right? We don't own technically our website or even our domain, right? If we don't renew our domain address, it's gone, right? Someone else, we're technically, we're paying to have that access to it. The idea of digital ownership has really just been something that didn't exist. But I believe as we move forward, everything that we buy online and offline will have an NFT component. And you might be like, why would I do that, right? Why would that make sense? I'll give you cars, for example. So when you buy a car in the near future, you will get an NFT with that car. And what that NFT says is it says that on this date, this person bought the car for this amount of money, and that this person is, the owner, right? And the beautiful thing about this NFT blockchain is that everything is authenticated online. It is you can't change it, you can't edit it, you can't modify it. And that what that does is it adds a layer of authority and authenticity on top of what we're doing. And so when someone goes to sell that car, what can actually be built into that NFT is that the car dealer will get a 10% cut of that sale price every single time you sell it. And you're like, well, why would I want that as a car owner, right? Like, why do I want to give my dealer that cut? Well, let's face it, we've all bought a car before. And what happens? Well, we know that when we drive the car off the lot, the price goes down. And we also know that dealer cared about us a lot until we drove the car off the lot, and then they're on to the next person. But imagine if that dealer's relationship with us was that rather than trying to remind us to get an oil change, they brought an oil change to our house because they now actually have a ventured interest on keeping that car at a higher price because they get a cut when it's actually sold. The idea of digital ownership and connecting these dots is why the art world has gone all in on NFTs, because we know as artists, if someone has a painting and they sell their painting at a local art show, and then a couple of years later, someone else finds it and loves it, and all of a sudden it's sold for $100,000, how much money does that artist get, or does that artist even know that it's resold? They haven't. In this space, because it's minted as an NFT, built into the NFT, you can have with what's called a smart contract that will automatically send a percentage to that original artist in perpetuity. That is changing the game, right? So every time someone sells an NFT, automatically, you can't get around it, 10% goes, which is kind of like the average for the industry right now, back to that original artist. So some of these artists, and I'll tell you, there's a musician, his name's Sammy Arriaga, and what Sammy did, and I'll jump to the idea of his brand currency. Sammy has been a musician out of Nashville. He's 37 years old. He has 17 million streams on Spotify. He's been working hard to kind of keep, as a musician, to build his brand and travel, but, he was looking at the idea and said, like, do I need to sell myself to a record label? Like, how do I continue to grow? And so as he looked at the space and he was jumping online, he decided, what if I sold my songs as NFTs? And those that actually bought the NFT for my songs or my multiple songs would have exclusive access to additional songs and the IP rights to use them in any way they want. The beautiful thing of this is I'm a big fan of Timbaland. If anyone knows Timbaland as a music producer, he produces pretty much all the music from those like Justin Timberlake, Justin Bieber, a lot of these amazing people. I bought Timbaland's NFT of his music with the full IP rights that I get to play it in my podcast without violation of any rights or anything that goes on there. And so as you looked at this, Sammy decided to drop an NFT that had 4 of his songs that you could only have access via the NFT. He sold about 3,000 of them online. It was about $100 for these 4 songs. But with those 4 songs, you also get the rest of the music that he puts out for the next 3 years automatically for free. What was interesting to me was in a matter of 3 weeks it took to sell out these NFTs, he made more money than 7 years with 17 million streams on Spotify. And now, as a creator, as a musician, he's able to live the life that he wants. He's able to actually change that dynamic. So for brands, one of the things that you want to think about is brand interactions, brand conversations. How do I connect the dots with your audience? We know that email address right now is one of those things that we want, right? Because it allows us to drop something in someone's email box. But what if we were able to actually connect with people at an ownership level? Where if I own an NFT, and as you become successful as a brand or a business, my value of my NFT goes up. That's kind of where this conversation can go. And really what this is also unlocking is things like proof of attendance or proof of execution. Right? When we go to things, we're doing things like learn to earn or play to earn, video games. Right? We're hearing things where kids are actually getting paid to play a video game, and that's a whole different world. And my daughter is one of those Roblox kids as well. But when we think about this change in this like merging world, the thing I want you to think about with NFTs, and really where I want us to kind of believe they're possible, is it can reinvent every interaction that we have with our current customers and our future customers. And the way that we can make that really work is this idea of turning our customers into co-owners. Because if you own an NFT, it is yours to keep. And so the last example that I will give you is that in the rewards game, we all play that rewards game, We earn rewards for flying on an airplane, right, on an airline, or sleeping at a hotel. But interestingly enough, I don't really own those rewards in a way that allow me to share them with others. And I also don't own in the fact that there's limited access to things, right? Like, I can't actually own a piece of what they're doing. And in this NFT space and where we're all going is that idea of ownership. So I can actually, when we move forward, think about this way in the sense of every person that made a purchase from you in the next 2 months leading up to Christmas, if you let them know that we're going to give you an NFT for a discount between Christmas and New Year's. And you might be thinking, Brian, that's nothing new. Like, anyone can give a discount code. But I don't know about you guys, but when I'm shopping online and I'm buying something of value, I search discount code for Best Buy, right? We look for those codes. But in the NFT sake, what we can do is we can give our customer an NFT, and with that NFT, they connect it to our website. It validates that they bought something from us on this day, and they get the discount. Well, now it's not about sharing out a discount code. It's about actually rewarding our loyal customers. And from our customer's perspective, if I don't want to use that reward, it's not just tied to me. I can transfer that NFT to someone else. And so although you're going to see a lot on a lot of different other pieces, I want to just put this out there. So on our website, you can actually just scan that QR code, or I'll have it here as well. You can go on the website. We created a custom social media Lima landing page with some of our content out there on use cases for small businesses, creating a reward system, shrinking the distance between you and your current customers. The idea that maybe if you're collaborating with another brand, you launching an NFT together and kind of putting it out there. And so hopefully you'll kind of check that out. I'll be here for the next 2 days on use cases. And then the last thing, I do have a daily podcast, and very proud we hit the top 25 on Apple and Spotify. And later on today, I'll be recording episode 216 since it's a daily podcast. But that podcast is for those that don't believe in NFTs, those that are new to NFTs. And I know some of you that are part of our community. We have a Discord, and I have creator coins, and I have a lot of things going on. But ultimately, like, my goal and what I hope that each of you can kind of look at this space on is that we are going to change the dynamic of how we own and control our data. NFTs are not about just this idea of those monkey photos, and it's not just the idea of a one-to-one relationship. It's about digital ownership and changing that paradigm. And so hopefully kind of open to that, what's possible there. Jump on the bandwagon of our podcast. And we're buying an NFT every day. So you don't have to actually buy NFTs yourself to participate. You can just actually jump onto our website, and each day you'll see new ones that we buy. We update the data. I'm spending a little over $140,000 USD so far on buying an NFT every day, with simply the goal of, I don't want to help the rich get richer. I want to help all of us see the power and magic that NFTs can offer. So with that, my name is Brian Fanzo. Thank you guys very much.